And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Eddie Taylor, who had a near-death experience, which we're going to learn about and more. Eddie, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, Eddie, let's start from the beginning and tell us what happened.
Well, this happened in 2010, in December of about 29th or 30th. I was in my studio, which I play music and had a band at the time. And I was tuning these three guitars up for the next night when we were playing a New Year's Eve thing. And two armed robbers, whatever you want to call them, two idiots come in with handkerchiefs over their face and hoodies on and robbed me. And in the process, I wasn't real compliant, so I wouldn't lay down and let him tie me up, or he had a roll of duct tape. But anyway, I finally said something to him. Well, you got a real problem there. Because anyway, how you going to hold a gun on me and duct tape me? But anyway, long story short, I finally got tired of it and laid down and let this guy duct tape my hand. And he stepped on my back to hold me down so he could put his gun down. He was a big guy. When he did, he split my lung open. And I kind of yelled and told him to get off my back, and he did. And he proceeded to do what he was doing. What I didn't know is he had ripped my lung open. And so from that day forward, just skip ahead 15 days, my breathing was getting worse and worse because the infection was setting in. Developed a bunch of long words, double pneumonia, hemothorax, and all these other things. And through the infection, and my O2 levels were going down every day because I wasn't taking deep breaths. And to the point, at the 15th day, I went into full-blown respiratory failure. So that's when I was admitted to St. Vincent's Hospital in Little Rock and was in a coma for the next 3 weeks. Well, I survived that to come home and contract the thrush mouth or whatever they call that, and from too much antibiotics. And was wasting away. I only weighed like 165 pounds to begin with, and I'd been on a feeding tube for 3 weeks. Now I'm home and can't eat because of the thrush and drink. So I was just wasting away on the couch, and laying there one day. And now comes the uniqueness to my story. Even though I guess you could say I was dying, there's no clinical proof I was dying because I was home from the hospital. I was supposedly getting better, but I wasn't eating. And I was so hungry, I was almost animalistic, But I was laying on the couch. All I did was lay around the couch and cry most of the time because I was so hungry and I couldn't eat. Well, my wife was laying with me right there on the couch, kind of spoon thing, going on. And I was praying to God. And I prayed and I said, listen, I've had all this I can stand, okay? And I asked God to take me back. Take me home. I can't do this no more. It's been bad enough, 3 weeks in a coma. Now I'm home wasting away to nothing. I've lost 40 pounds. I just couldn't stand it no longer, and I was so freaking hungry. I didn't, I would have eaten anything if I could have just swallowed, but I couldn't swallow. Well, here's the thing. I said a prayer for God. I asked God to take my life, to take me home. There's got to be something better than this. And most people, when they have an NDE, I've read hundreds of cases, it's because they were in the throes of death, a car wreck, something, you know what I mean? In my case, I was literally out of danger of the illness from the respiratory failure. I was home recuperating supposedly when I prayed for God to take my life. And when I did, I turned around and looked at my wife and said, and then she told me this, I don't remember. She said that I looked at her through tears, and I just said, I'm going to be leaving in a minute, but don't worry, everything's going to be all right. So I turned back around, and of course, what she didn't know is I did leave. because when I prayed it, I was instantly in front of the man. And it was really weird because there was nothing but white light and just and I was more or less, I know this sounds crazy, but floating in a kneeling position in front of three things. It was a door frame, and the door was open, and there was a huge boulder beside this door, which I don't know what significance that had. But then there was someone standing behind that boulder, and I was told by this person, not through speech, obviously, but I was let know that in these exact words, you don't have to hurt anymore. All you have to do is come through the door. And the door was open. And I couldn't really see what was on the other side, but I knew. And what was on the other side, what was through that doorway, I'll spare you all the details. You've heard them all before. Everything you've heard, I experienced it, and I knew it was on the other side of that door. I knew that's where I came from. I knew that's where we're all going. I knew so much from just looking at that doorway. I mean, and I got to thinking, of course, right? I mean, everything became clear to me then. This is where we're supposed to be, and that's where we're all going, and that's where we all came from. We're all part of God. I even got this thing in my mind that we picturing a hair on somebody's leg. That would be me. I'm a hair. But that's the sort of thing that's going through my mind, and I kept thinking this wave of guilt. First of all, as I done decided, I'm going. I want to go through the door, and I'm like trying to get through it, and this humongous wave of guilt hits me. Eddie, you've got a son, you've got a wife, you've got family, you got friends. You're just going to leave them behind? And I said to that thought, yeah, because I instantly also knew that we're all coming. They're all coming when their time is here. And I said, you know what? I'll see them when they get there. So let's go. And I tried to, but I really could move like I wanted to move. And I was trying to get there through this door. And then it's like this entity, and I can't say that person standing behind that rock, I can't say nothing told me this is God. Nothing told me this is Jesus. But you knew who it was, or something like that. I mean, you knew. And then they said, wait a minute. You've got to go back. It's not your time yet. And the exact words that you've heard 1,000 times were said to me. You've got to go back. It's not your time. Your son still needs you. Now, that quote right there, you got to kind of hang on to it. Your son still needs you. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go back. And the next thing you know, bam, I'm right back on that couch. My wife is still laying right there behind it. Don't know nothing. Don't have any idea what just happened. And when I came back, I mean, even though it seemed like just a few seconds that happened, the things that I learned from it and the changes and the just it's like it was years, that I was gone. And I never told nobody but my wife, because at the time I had never heard of one. I never heard of an NDE. And that's what was so weird, was that first, say, year going by with me just in total oblivion. I mean, I didn't know what to think about it. I knew that I had seen God. I had been in the presence of God. I knew that more than I knew anything else in my life. I knew that to be a fact, but I didn't know what to do about it, because you can't just run out and tell anybody, because you're going to be laughed at, scorned, whatever. I mean, and I'm kind of vain about that. So I kept my mouth shut. My wife knew. I told her immediately, but I just couldn't bring myself to tell anybody else. But I lived with that absolute confusion for that following year of why me, thinking I was the only person that's ever seen God, you know. I hadn't been keeping up with the NDEs. I didn't even know they had a name. Uh, so I'm thinking this has all happened to me only. And that's a very weird world to live in. To know that you just seen God, you were in the presence of the man, and yet who do you tell? There's something made me want to tell people, but then something stopped me also because I knew they wouldn't take me seriously, you know. And to this day, I'm shown who to tell and who not to tell. And I don't know how that happens, but you know, I was telling somebody about this. They just came over a few minutes ago, and I said I can't go do what we're going to do because I'm going to do this. Oh, for what's it for? I said, well, don't even worry about it. I mean, there's some people there's no sense in telling. They're just not going to get it. They don't want to get it. But you know, it was weird. It was weird because about a year later, I was riding in the truck with a friend of mine who's a multimillionaire, and we were talking about his brother's accident that he had just had, you know, a vehicle. And something, he said, my brother almost died in this wreck. We were going to look at the location. And something told me to tell this guy, he was a real character. He liked to joke and fun and everything a lot more than I like to. But uh, something told me to tell him something. And I looked at him and I said, well, you know, there's a lot worse things than death. And he looked at me, and instead of laughing at me, which is what I was expecting, he just kind of grinned. And I said, well, guess what? Matter of fact, and I went on to tell him my story. First person I'd ever told other than my wife. And halfway through the story, this guy does something that absolutely amazed me. When I said, when I was telling about the part, the person told this, whoever, you had to go back. He said, look, you didn't want to leave, did you? And I said, no, I didn't. And he just kind of grinned, kept driving. I said, because this person or this thing told me that he said, I said, told me that my son still needed me. And he looked at me, he said, and I said, you've had one, hadn't you? He said, yep. And I was told my mother still needed me. And I knew by the way he said that, absolutely beyond a shadow of a doubt, he had one. And that was the first person I had told. And I knew to tell him. I knew. And he basically finished my story for me. And I'm like, you had one. You really had? So I'm not the only person. And after that, it just blew up. Then I started researching it. I mean, this was in 2010. It wasn't that long ago, but I'd heard of the book Blinded by the Light or Into the Light or whatever it was. Uh, but I didn't really know what I was talking about. And I'd heard people saying they had died and seen the white light, but I blew it off like everybody does, like, you know. But yeah, that was my first person that, you know, made me know I hadn't lost my mind. And because that is a weird thing to realize that, you know, you've had one, then find out, thank God I'm not the only person. But it's it's been a life changing experience. There's no doubt, and it really didn't. I got contacted by a Canadian film company, wanted to include me in a documentary, and it was on the Zoom thing. I didn't tell you this, Herbert, but that's why I was scared to do the Zoom because it was during COVID when they did this, and we couldn't get it to work. So I was supposed to meet with like 8 different executives of this film company, and it didn't work. So anyway, that's pretty much the story. I mean, that's the condensed version of it. But they were more interested in the things that have happened to me afterwards. That, you know, the after effects of it, and you know, that's the whole thing. It's going to change anybody, but you know, there's certain things that change about you that are pretty astonishing. I mean, and
Eddie, thanks for sharing your life with us. What are some of the after effects that have happened afterwards, and how else have you changed?
no fear of death. First of all, that's the first thing. And there's almost a, I hate to use the word, but there's almost an arrogance because you know things that quantum scientists don't. And they're trying to find them out all the time. And I think I got into an argument with a guy online, one who was a quantum physicist or something, and he's saying there's no way there can be a God and all that. And I'm like, dude, you can say all you want to, you can read all the information you want to, you can get all the literature in the world, but I'm telling you, you're talking to somebody that's seen him, and you'll never convince me I didn't. And so that's been kind of a weird thing, because you want to go out and preach it, that from what happened to you. You want to get on the tallest mountain and scream it, but you know that they're just not ready for it. Most people are just not ready for it. They don't want to know the truth. I mean, and there's so many people that are searching for the truth, yet it blows my mind that there's so many people that have had NDEs that could easily help them with that problem. But the thing that really is amazing most of all to me is my understanding, I think, of things that I have read in the Bible. Mine was a spiritual thing, biblical. I've read the Bible 4 times, in different versions of the King James, obviously, and New English. But anyway, having read it cover to cover 4 times, there were a lot of things that I'd read that I found out I didn't even have a clue what they were talking about. And I can give you a few examples if you'd like here.
Yeah.
For instance, the story of Samson and Delilah. Everybody knows that story, right? I mean, pretty obvious. But the story about him slaying an army of 10,000 with a jawbone of a, you heard that one, right?
I actually don't know that story. I thought all I know is that when he cut his hair, he became weak.
Right. Well, the main one of the main story is that the vanity thing, but there's also the part about where he met, and he in the valley of Gideon or something like that. He slew an army of 10,000 with the jawbone of an. And that's just one example. That is not. I got it now. And I tell you, the short version of that is loose lips sink ships. Jawbone of an. Everybody thinks it's a horse's jaw. It's not. It's your mouth. So anyway, that and things that I've read for became like, you've heard the saying, nobody's perfect, right?
Yes, I sure have.
Okay. Everybody says that's a fact, even though the Bible tells you 3 people that I know of that the King James Version used the word perfect to describe them. Did you know that? The Bible scholars will argue with you, but all you gotta do is open the book to the book of Job. The first verse is Job was a perfect and upright man. So I mean, it's weird things like that, because I've read the Bible so much and found out I wasn't even getting the meaning of it. I mean, I was missing it completely. But yeah, that's been pretty amazing that I can my friends can read a story, I can read a story, and we'll get 2 completely different things, from it. Uh, but yeah, it's definitely been a life changing experience.
Let me ask you this. Before
Okay.
you talked to your friend in the truck, you thought, or you asked the question, why me? And I'm assuming you thought you were the only person in the world that had the NDE. How did you change once you found out that other people had NDEs too?
Oh, it was relief. It was relief. I mean, it wasn't like that, between finding that out and having it, it wasn't like I was walking on a thin line or anything. I was pretty much still me, but just, it was a big burden in my heart that I wanted to tell somebody, but I was, scared to death to, because I knew what they were going to say. Um, Say I've been a musician and I ride motorcycles, and I've not had the best of lives, but there's in a way it's probably better. God picks some strange people to use to carry his message. I'm telling you, I've been to prison before, a lot of 15 years in prison. So I'm not the best of people to carry the message, but Right on the other hand, look at Paul. But the thing about it is, if I can go to heaven, I promise you, anybody can go to heaven. So there's I doubt there's another human being on this earth that is worse than I am, or was worse than I am, was. So that's pretty enlightening, because I hear people say, "Oh my God, I'll never make it to heaven." I said, "Well, you ain't got to worry about it, because everybody's going, from what I understand." And actually, Jesus said, if you talk about heaven, don't talk about it being here or there, because heaven's within you. It's everlasting life, the promise. But anyway, yeah, if I can make it, pretty sure anybody else can too.
After your NDE, did you notice that you had more love for humanity?
Tolerance.
Well, at least
More tolerance.
you had tolerance.
Yeah, because used to I tried to convince everybody of my way of thinking, and now I realize that none of that matters. I mean, nothing matters. I'm of that school. Some of the people that I've read, that after they had the NDE, they was just through. They didn't want to do nothing but just go back to heaven and just left, their life behind, and just stop existing. Well, I mean, I didn't do that, but I, I things got put in perspective. I'm not real smart, so it's hard for me to put everything to say the right words. But I just listen to things and I think, why are you arguing and fighting about that? It don't mean nothing. It's not the only thing that matters is what's going to happen when your soul graduates, I call it. You ain't dying, you're going to graduate. And all those things that we think are so important, and the idols I'm one of those people that don't watch television. I do not. I haven't watched television in 20 something years, because right off the bat I started seeing, people think that those people on television are different than them, that they're somehow, gods or something, and it's sickening to me to sit and people just worship these Hollywood stars or whatever they are, and it just, that whole thing's is real icky to me. So I mean, I think we're all pretty much the same thing. We're all going to the same place. That's my opinion. That's all I can give is my opinion. But from what I learned, we're either all going to hell or we're all going to heaven, because we all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And and I realize your podcast is probably not religiously oriented, so I try to stay away from that as best I can. But I can't help it. I mean, it's what mine was about. And I know that person standing behind that rock, it might not have been God, but it was somebody awful close to God.
After you came back, did you notice that you had any new abilities that could be something similar like psychic?
No, I've read a lot of people that said they did. I've read a lot of people that I try not to fill in the blanks. You know what I mean? It was an NDE to me. It's a very personal and it's very spiritual, but I didn't develop anything other than the clarification thing I told you about. I mean, I just, all of a sudden, things that I had read before now meant something completely different. And of course, I point that out to a few people now and then, and no, there really was a whale, and this guy was in the belly of it. No, but anyway, no, I see a lot of people saying they become clairvoyant, and their consciousness and all that in touch with. And I'm kind of still jury's out on that. I haven't seen anything other than just my, clarification of things. And that's really what better thing is there? I mean, I can't understand how people think they become mediums and all this, and they didn't have an NDE like I did. I'll put it like that, because mine, I don't think you'd be wanting to go right against what the Bible says, about mediums or whatever. I had nothing against mediums. they can be whatever they want to be, but I don't think it came from heaven. I'll put it like that.
Have the memories of the experience faded over time?
Not a bit. Everything else does, but it don't. That's really weird. I've read that, other people say that, and I'm not saying it just because I've heard it, because mine don't. It's not, there's nothing faded from it. I could recite it. I mean, just exactly the way it was, word for word, all the way through. It's just, it never fades, and I don't think it can fade. I wish I could have another one, but no, it's fresh on my mind every day. I mean, you ask about abilities. I guess I should say this because this is really weird. But I just had 2 motorcycle wrecks in the last 3, 4 months. Both I was hit by a car. Both I walked away from. Uh, Pretty bloody, but walked away from with no helmet on. We don't have to wear helmets in Arkansas. I've been in so many situations where doctors told me that you're going to die or you can't live through this. I was shot in the stomach. They said I was going to die because of that, because of the infection it caused on my spine when it broke my back. I've been bit by a freaking copperhead or cottonmouth. I just had so many things happen. I got shot in the head with a nail gun one time when I was right out of high school. Drove a 12-penny nail through my brain, and it didn't even give me a headache. Everybody else was freaking out. I mean, it was just pandemonium, and I'm just sitting there saying, "Just calm down. I'm okay." I couldn't see it, obviously, and everybody else was standing with their eyes wide open, their mouth hanging open, but I could feel the head of the nail because my head was 6 inches and the nail was 3 1/4. It nailed a cap to the side of my head. And when I woke up in the Houston Northwest Medical Center, there was somebody sitting at the foot of the bed in between my feet playing with my toes. And he had on a suit. And I'm like, guy turns around and said, "Oh, you're awake." He was Hispanic. I said, "Yeah, where am I at?" He said, "Oh, you're in Houston, blah, blah, blah." And he said, "I'm the surgeon that removed the nail from your head." And I said, "Oh, well, I guess I kind of owe you a debt of gratitude." And I'll never forget what this guy said. It was so just blazed in my memory. He stood up and turned around. He was a big guy too. And he said, "Oh, no, you don't owe me nothing." And we're in Houston. He got a fresh accent. "You owe him. You not supposed to be here." And they proceeded to show me the x-rays with this white line going through my eyes, the socket where the eyes should be. And then they pointed out on a like an overlay thing of your brain, all the areas that nail had destroyed. And yet none of them were affected. And that is the thing that keeps happening. You wouldn't believe the people who said, "I need to write a book, I need to do a movie," or something, because I keep telling them, "Well, how can I do that when it don't stop? It just constantly happens." Things that would normally kill people happen to me every day, and it don't even, it's amazing. I mean, I could do a movie just about the different times that I've been so close. I should have been dead. I mean, just there's no explanation on most of them. I dove off of a cliff in a rock quarry in Little Rock one time and missed the water from 100 feet up. Right before I hit, well, I opened my eyes right before, because I dove, and I opened my eyes right before I hit and realized I hadn't dove far enough. Right before I hit the gravel, my feet just went over my head and I landed in the water. Shot right down the bank. Amazing.
So when you were looking through that door, did you see like paradise through the door, or what could you see through the door?
It wasn't a visual thing. It was not, the whole Streets of Gold thing, I know, is all, it's what it was I felt what it was. And what I felt was I don't know. One way to describe it was like I felt like I was a newborn baby, and I was in the hands of its mother, and everything. I mean, that's the first thing I said about it. There's no words in the English language to describe what I felt, and any anytime you do try to explain it, you almost degrade it because you try to describe something that's otherworldly in worldly terms, it's not going to come out right, and it doesn't because the feeling was, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, there's no way to describe it, but I knew within a second that that was where all of us want to be, where all of us have been, and where all of us are going back. Uh, what this whole thing on Earth is, I don't quite understand, but there's no doubt about what happens afterwards. And I can see how some people would just throw it up and want it so bad that they just don't even function anymore. Um, and there's another question as to why do certain people have them and other people don't. I think I got the answer to that, but I don't really know. But if there's a lot of people probably would take their own life if they knew what a person has an NDE is. Because why would you not? I mean, it does make sense, but of course, I'm not going to do that. But I can see how some people might.
When you got back, were you angry at all that you're back here and you wish you were over on the other side?
It was not anger. It was disappointment for sure. Um, because the gravity of the whole thing kind of overshadowed that part of it, at first, because at first you just walk around in a daze. I mean, you don't know what to think, especially when you don't know that other people have had them. So I really couldn't get all emotional one way or the other about not getting to stay, but there was no doubt in my mind that I wanted to. I mean, and I did not want to come back, but I don't know. It's like nobody really gave me a choice about it. I was told. I mean, and how do some? I've heard this before on other podcasts or whatever. That how does so many people get told the same thing? Oh, there's been a mistake. You got to go back. That's really kind of strange to me. I don't understand why they keep making all these mistakes.
If you had a friend that was grieving over the loss of a loved one, what type of advice would you give?
I'd tell them you are wasting your time because that's the last thing on this earth. Yeah, but only thing when you grieve over someone passing away, I feel like you're really just grieving over your own loss. Because that person, if they can tell you, they tell you, hey, can it? All right, I like it here, and don't wish me back, whatever you do. And I have spoken to a lot of people. I've helped a lot of people actually. I never ever set out to do this, but I have met people through my business that were either, let's say, their time was limited, and I came, and I think I did a lot of good by talking to them about my story, and I know I did. I've been told that over and over. That just letting a person know that this is not the end. Ah, gosh, nowhere near it. I mean, this is the beginning. And somebody I heard use the word address rehearsal, and that pretty much sums it up. One lady had a heart transplant. She knew she didn't have long, so we talked about it and talked about it, and she had lost her husband and a daughter recently, and I said, "No, you ain't lost nobody. You just got to make that transition. Your soul. I feel like this, and these are just my own personal opinion, but I don't think your soul gets any older. I think your soul stays the same as it always was. 'Cause I personally still like to climb trees and ride bicycles. And I'm 63 years old. Body can't do it too much anymore, but it's just not. It's I, my soul didn't have an age in it. I mean, I know that because I still probably think like I did when I was a teenager. I just certain things you have to do, you learn that. But um, I think your soul just keeps right on going. And I know for a fact, one thing for sure, people shouldn't take praying for granted. Because in my case, I said the prayer and it happened immediately. I mean, talk about it in real time. It happened immediately. So, and that's not only time. There's been a couple other times when I prayed for something and it happened literally as I was praying. And it's so we take that for granted that we say a prayer and all that shit just goes out the window. Well, I happen to know for a fact that it don't. That it gets heard and dealt with in real time. Mine did.
Eddie, what kind of music do you play and where can people go listen to it?
The YouTube site is I'm a Rocker 50. I'm a Rocker 50. That's IMA, not IMA. Like they get that mixed up like it's I'm a Rocker, one word, all small case letters. I'm a Rocker 50 at YouTube, and I play. I mean, we've got one album out, and it's all originals, like 14 songs. Oddly enough, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and I couldn't even pick up a guitar. So we ran into the studio and recorded everything that I had written up to that point, and then found out after we recorded and didn't even edit it. We just recorded it for to have and then found out that a friend of mine, his brother owned Arista Records in Nashville and was general manager for 20 years before he passed away. And at the time, I didn't even know this, and here I am. I got my first CD out, and somebody told me, you need to let such and such hear that. And so I said, why? He said, because his brother owns Arista Records. And I called one time, honest to God, I called him about something completely unrelated, and he said he was at his brother's house at the time. And he's in there listening to your damn record. That was the exact words. Of all the people that have tried and failed to just get a low-level executive to hear one, I happened to get mine heard by the owner in his own home, and I didn't edit it. So the mistakes in it were horrendous too. So anyway,
Have you?
but you can hear a lot of my stuff on that I'm a Rocker 50.
Well, I'll put a link to your channel in the description. Have you ever written a song about your NDE?
No, but I've thought about it many, many times, and it's just it's too personable. That's the only excuse I can give because I want people to know about it. I mean, that don't know about them, they need to know about it. But it's a very personal thing, and I don't know. It's in my when I write a song, it becomes like your child. You don't. Some people can't let other people hear them. And I'm one of those people that I don't mind you hearing, but some things are just too personal to put out there like that because it's almost like you're making fun of it, and other people will make fun of it, and that's I kind of keep the NDE, separate from that.
Eddie, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that? And if so, how can they contact you?
Find me on Facebook under Eddie Taylor.
Before we finish up, can you give us a last positive message?
Don't fear death. Death is not what it's all cut out to be. It's just a new beginning. Nobody wants to die. You ain't got nothing to worry about. Because if I can go, anybody can go.
Eddie, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
No problem. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of